The girl who disappeared. Back in my early 20s, I lived about 30 minutes outside Manchester, New Hampshire. It was a strange time in my life. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 2 years, and I was wandering, trying to figure things out. My grandmother, deeply religious, attended church every Sunday without fail. After my grandfather passed away, I started going with her, partly to support her, partly because I felt like I needed some grounding myself. My grandfather had been a decorated veteran, well known and respected in our community. His death left a huge hole in my grandmother's life, but her faith never wavered. She told me she knew he was finally reunited with the Lord, and I could see how much comfort that brought her. I admired her faith. It was the kind that brought real peace, something rare and beautiful. One Sunday after the service, I met a girl I'd never seen before. In our close-knit community, especially at church, that was unusual. She was striking, dark, curly hair and deep hazel eyes. I waited for the service to end and approached her. Part of me was attracted to her, but another part was just curious about seeing someone new. Her name was Kaylee, and she had this quiet, mysterious charm that drew me in. We started talking, and the spark was undeniable. I tried asking her about her past, family, home life, but she deflected with jokes, saying I'd have to take her out for those answers. I enjoyed the banter. Eventually, she told me her family had recently moved to the area, and she was attending college nearby. That explained why I'd never seen her before. Over the next week, we texted frequently and exchanged social media. Her Instagram had surprisingly few followers, which I actually preferred. She opened up more about her family. Her stepfather was an abusive alcoholic, and her biological father was worse. They'd moved to escape him, leaving everything behind. I didn't press for details, but I was glad she trusted me enough to share. The following Sunday, she was at church again. I took it as a sign and asked her on a date. She smiled and said yes. We made plans for later that week. The night of the date, we kept it simple, a movie and dinner. It was going well. She was a great listener, and I felt a genuine connection. After dinner, I suggested a drive to keep the conversation going. We hit the highway, driving out of town on a winding, tree-lined road. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, Kaylee started speaking in a language I didn't understand. It sounded like French, fast and mumbled. At first, I thought she was joking, but then her eyes rolled back, leaving only the whites. I swerved, almost crashing into the barrier. My heart pounded as I pulled over, thinking she was having a seizure. I called an ambulance, my hands trembling. As I waited, she kept talking, her head vibrating. I didn't know what to do. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. She snapped her head toward me, her eyes normal again, and gave me this wild, wide-eyed look. Before I could say a word, she threw open the car door and sprinted into the woods. I sat there, stunned, until the police and paramedics arrived. I told them everything, even though it sounded insane. They searched the area but found no trace of her. I never saw her again. Her Instagram was deleted, her number disconnected. No one at church knew who she was. It was like she vanished into thin air. The Desert Storm. I was driving back from a solo trip to visit my friend Kelvin a few states over. I love road trips, and this one had been great, until I crossed into Nevada. A thunderstorm hit, one of the heaviest rainfalls in years. My beat-up 2012 Volvo's windshield wipers didn't work, so I had no choice but to pull over and wait it out. I parked a good distance into the desert, figuring I'd wait until the storm passed. Hours went by, and the rain didn't let up. As the sun set, I started to feel uneasy. The desert has a way of messing with your head. I kept glancing out the windows, half expecting to see something lurking in the darkness. Then I saw flashes of light in the distance. Not lightning, but sharp bursts of white light darting through the darkness. They were getting closer. Instinct kicked in, and I scrambled out of the car, hiding behind a rock formation. My heart raced as I watched 3 figures approach my car, flashlights swinging wildly. They circled the car, inspecting it like they were looking for something, or someone. One of them fired a gunshot into the air, and I bit down on my lip so hard it bled. I stayed frozen, barely daring to breathe. Eventually, the lights disappeared, and I called 911. When the police arrived, the figures were gone. The officer waited out the storm with me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. I haven't done a road trip since. The strange town. My friend Carol and I were driving back from Florida to New Jersey after visiting friends. We decided to do the drive in one shot, but after hours on the road, we needed a break. We pulled off at a town that claimed to be a tourist hotspot, but something felt off. The streets were empty, the buildings worn down. It felt like a ghost town, but not abandoned, just eerie. We stopped at a convenience store, and the cashier was a tall woman with dark hair and suspenders. We left and went to another store across the street. The cashier there looked exactly like the first one, same hair, same face, same height. I asked if she had a twin, but she said she was an only child. When we went back to the first store, the cashier was a completely different person. We stopped for gas, and the station was empty until we walked out. Suddenly, it was packed with cars and people, all staring at us. It felt like we'd stepped into another reality. We got back on the road, but the strangeness didn't end. A minivan with a cracked windshield passed us twice, even though we'd been driving in a straight line. By the time we got home, it felt like waking up from a dream. I still can't explain what happened, but that town left me with a bad feeling I'll never forget.